even when the Eagles don't play their best, and they haven't really played their best really any games this year, they seem to find ways to win. That Bucks game, that Rams game. I know they had the 2 losses, but they find ways to win in games where they're not their best. Les, welcome to the program, man. How you doing on a Tuesday trade deadline day edition of the show?
Doing just great, Zander. John, how you doing?
Good, Les. Happy election day to you.
Yes.
So I saw you bandying back and forth, a little bit, pricey from the little conventional wisdom of the NFL for Jaelan Phillips. I don't know how early you got in the green room. If you heard my little explanation, that's my thought. I don't want to muddy the waters for you. Your thoughts on the trade?
Yeah, I like it. All I said was, this is, you and I have talked about social media and people's reactions before, but what I think I said was, gee, they gave up a lot, but I guess Vic Fangio knows this guy a lot better than I do, having coached him in Miami in 2023. You would have thought I had impugned his mother's character. It was people just, how dare I, say something like, well, they gave up a lot. A 3rd-round pick is valuable, and the response is just go deep into the weeds about, well, we'll get a 3rd-round compensatory pick if he signs somewhere else in free. No, you have to
Nobody understands that. My pet peeve, Les. Nobody understands how the
I think we should all have Jimmy Kempski killed for telling people how important compensatory picks are important.
Jimmy.
But
Jimmy knows how they work, though. But I think people don't listen to the explanation.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. I mean, Jimmy does a great job.
I know you don't want him murdered, but
it's people have gotten care. There are some people out there who seem to think the point of football is compensatory picks at this point.
Yeah,
but you don't get a compensatory pick for him until 2027 anyway, and it's probably, if he plays so well that he signs a contract that would give him, it would make him worthy of a 3rd-round compensatory pick, the Eagles are going to re-sign him, I would think.
Yeah, you would
26 years old, But all that aside, it's a pretty good trade. It's the best trade of the 3 trades he's made going into the deadline. The two corners are kind of a little more of what they have, which they certainly needed, but I'm not sure they found a real CB2 in either of those guys. But this is, Jaelan Phillips is probably, if he can stay healthy, as good as Jalen Hunt. He's not Myles Garrett or even Bradley Chubb, his Miami teammate. He's not Trey Hendrickson. He's not, but who knows what the availability. I mean, we know Myles Garrett probably wasn't available because the Browns let it be known. But it's a good move. It's a good move. It will help if he can stay healthy. It's hard to make a big move at the trade deadline. There's only been one really in recent Eagles history, and that was Jay Ajayi.
Does he help the pass rush as much as we need him to help the pass rush?
Well, that's the thing.
The weakness of the defense.
Thing, Zander. That's the thing. People get real excited when they see that a deal's been made and they're sure that everybody that comes here is going to be the next this or that. And I don't know. I mean, I think he's as good as what they have, and they certainly needed more with all the injuries. Does he really move the needle? That's a good question. I think Nolan Smith, whenever he comes back, and I would love to have a good time frame on that, will move the needle.
Yeah.
And I think Brandon Graham, is kind of in the same category as Phillips and Jalen Hunt. I think he'll be better than some of what we've seen out there.
Yeah, the Nolan stuff is interesting because I don't think it's a good sign if his practice window isn't started this week, and the Eagles will push that off and it's an extra day now, so it'll probably be Thursday before we know if that practice window is going to get started.
Yeah.
It's 21 days, so if it doesn't get started, then I start to get concerned.
Yes. Yeah, I think the premise when he went down was, well, in mid-season or so, he'll be right back, and not close.
Yeah. What I like is the bit from Phillips' standpoint, because I think he is a pass rusher first and foremost. Whereas I think, and this is something that is surprising to me, because I think when Vic, and I was surprised when Vic said it last year, and he first intimated that because of what Alex Hunt was portrayed as coming out of the draft, everybody said, well, he's a developmental pass rusher. And he's got this big upside if you can tap into it. And Vic said very early on when he was forced to play him, he's pretty good against the run. And he's way ahead of where he was as a pass rusher, where he still needed a lot of technique work, needed to add moves to his bag, as they say.
Yeah.
And I think that's still the case. So if you manipulate it the best way and Alex plays early downs and Phillips comes in as the third and long guy, maybe you really got something going as far as And I think this is what the cornerbacks do as well. Optionality for, I hate using that word because it brings up memories of Sam Hinkie, but giving big options is what this trade deadline was about for Howie Roseman. Is that how you look at it?
Yeah, it was, but it's important. Everybody wants to throw a parade for every trade Howie makes.
I know. It's so annoying.
And it seems, nothing. I mean, obviously he's doing a wonderful job, but we don't know that any of these guys is really going to make a huge impact. And the corners, like I said, the corners are kind of. I was a little bit with Jair Alexander. The first seconds of that, I thought, oh, Jair Alexander.
Yeah. Big name trap, Les. Big name trap.
Well, not just that, but I thought, he's had some injuries. Maybe he just needed a longer runway to get over these injuries. But then, people who are closer to it than I am kind of said, nah, he's just not the same guy he was before he got hurt. And that's a shame, because Jair Alexander 3 years ago would have been one heck of an acquisition.
Oh my God. 2020, I think he was the best cornerback in football. But boy, that's like dog years in the NFL.
It really is. It really is. I hope he helps, but I think it's fair to wish that, and we're not at the trade deadline yet. Maybe Howie's got something else going. Who knows? But I think it's fair to wonder if they could have done a little more, but they did in volume. They certainly did a lot. And it's possible, Phillips will be the guy that will have the biggest impact, I would think. And he can, he's good. I mean, he's not great, but he's good. And, he could certainly play a big role here down the stretch.
Les, tell me if I'm wearing eagle-colored glasses or if I'm being objective enough. It feels like going into week 10 here, the Eagles have the best chance to come out of the NFC this year. And maybe it's Eagle glasses, but I look around the league, I see a lot of injuries on a lot of the best teams. I think the Eagles have the advantage when it comes to, playing in big games, experience in the biggest moments, obviously being to 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years. And even less, the other thing I'll say is, even when the Eagles don't play their best, and they haven't really played their best really any games this year, they seem to find ways to win. That Bucs game, that Rams game, I know they had the 2 losses, but, they find ways to win in games where they're not their best. I feel like the Eagles right now have the best chance in the NFC. It's only week 10. It could change by week 12.
Right.
But I think right now the Eagles look like they have a good chance. What say you?
Well, Zander, the results of this past weekend lend a lot of credence to that. It was an extraordinary. Not only did the other 3 NFC East teams all lose,
unbelievable,
including Dallas last night, not even looking real, sharp.
How about Josh Sweat last night, Les?
Yeah, that's a shame. And that's another tangent. I won't go on right now, but remind me. I'll come back to it. But, those 3 teams lost, plus Green Bay and Detroit both lost. And Green Bay lost, and you don't exult over this, but Green Bay lost one of their best players in Kraft, the tight end, for the season. So really, you look at it now, and Green Bay, Eagles, let me get my words. Detroit, there we go. Finally got the right D word. And San Francisco, I think, even though San Francisco is the Joel Embiid of the NFL. I think those are the teams, and it's going to be ridiculously hard for anybody to keep the Eagles from winning the NFC East. This is not – I wanted to go back. I haven't had time to do that yet this morning and look at this point in the season when every team in the league had at least 2 losses, there's no team that's –
there's no dominant team.
Right.
There's no –
It's extraordinary. It really is. There's nobody that hasn't had just a real stinker of a game against somebody.
And the AFC is worse than the NFC. I mean, the AFC's got – I don't know.
Another thing that happened this weekend, going to the weekend, you're reading the Chiefs have got it all back together now. Nobody's going to beat them now. They're really rolling again. They had a tough start, but now they're the Chiefs again. Well, Buffalo handled them, it's really pretty incredible. In response to your question, Zander, I think the Eagles are in tremendous position to get back.
They really are.
There's a whole lot of season. There's a half a season left to play. But
and that's why I like to trade, because I think they're in that. I've been calling it life cycles this week. They're in that contender life cycle, and that's when you should make a trade like this. When you're a middling team or a bad team, I would call this a bad trade if you're giving up a 3rd round pick for a player that has an expiring contract, almost like an NBA trade from the Eagles. And by the way, Miami had to pay an extra $5 million for that third round pick. So,
I would have, I was thinking maybe you could get, a few days ago, I would have thought maybe you could get Jaelan Phillips for a 4, but is it that huge a difference? No, it certainly isn't,
No. All right. I'll let you go on your Josh Sweat tangent. I want to hear it because, boy, that guy's a good player.
Me too.
And
it's not just a Josh Sweat. It illustrates, people say the salary cap isn't real and you can do anything you want. If the Eagles had Josh Sweat and Milton Williams right now.
Oh, my God.
Tell me who beats them. And these are players that were drafted by the Eagles. There was a time when if somebody left the Eagles, you assumed they were done because they didn't ever let people go that had real value. The reality is you can't, when you have a lot of really good players, when you're a Super Bowl level team year after year, you can't really do that. You have to let people walk who are good players. And those 2 guys, Sweat actually wasn't playing that great last year until the playoffs. I think at the end of the regular season, if you tried to round up fans who wanted to re-sign Josh Sweat for a lot of money, I don't know that you would have found anybody, But then in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, he was outstanding. And he's carried that on. He's really – this was a guy – I did a lot of stories about him early in his career. This was a guy who – was the number 1 player in the country at any position.
Oh, yeah.
Had a horrific knee injury. The doctor actually talked about amputating his leg in high school. They didn't do that, obviously. And but it took him he was kind of out of position in college. He didn't really get his leg fully back for years and years. And
I know at one point he used to get angry. He kept getting the leg questions, and he was like, at one point he just kind of shut it down. He's like, I'm fine.
He would limp. He would limp around the practice. Early in his career. But if you ever looked at the guy, and John, you've been in the locker room. I mean, I've never seen a more chiseled
Oh my God.
That guy.
I still, Les, to your point, I still remember the first day. In those days, you could. I remember the rookie camp. You can get players coming off the field.
Yeah, yeah.
I still remember the first day I met Josh Sweat because I said, "This guy looks like an edge rusher. This guy's like out of Hollywood Central casting."
Maybe even of a different era because he's so much bigger than a lot of edge rushers are now. You know?
He's the closest thing to Myles Garrett the Eagles have ever had physically.
Yes, yeah, physically, yes. Yeah. And it's a damn shame. I mean, it is. I'm sure they would have loved to have, after the Super Bowl performance, they would have loved to kept him and Williams, who's doing very, very well for a good New England team. You know, one of their best players. You don't hear as much about him as you do Drake May because he's a defensive tackle, but he's having a wonderful year up there. You know, he's one of their leaders.
To your point, the Eagles had too many good players, which is nice. It's a nice problem to have, but you can't keep everybody. And if
you could, you'd be the Dodgers. You know, I mean, they could. The Eagles could be the Dodgers. They really could if they had that kind of setup. Yeah, but you can't defer $1 billion in the NFL.
Now, the one thing, and I want to talk about it because I want your thoughts on this. It seems like certainly Vic Fangio wants Nakobe Dean on the field, which I get. Good player, had a great season, seems to be healthy, amazing comeback from a really significant injury. But boy, Jihad Campbell was playing well at linebacker. And the upside of Jihad Campbell is just enormous to me. You know, this is another good problem. This is a rich people problem in NFL terms. Right. You got two really good players. Where would you go? I don't know. Because the edge snaps are gone, Les. They brought in. Yeah. You can't play the edge. I can't put him on the bench. What would Les Bowen do?
Oh, that's a real good question. I might need more time than I have here to think through that. I would try some kind of. I'd make sure nobody gets fatigued out there. You know, you can sub. You know, those Bowen and the other linebacker usually play every defensive snap, so I would get him in there.
But, well, that's what Vic's going to do. He's going to play Nakobe in the base and Jihad in the nickel. Looks like that's what he's going to do.
Because I think Jihad's a better pass coverage guy than Nakobe. But I think Nakobe is probably significantly better against the run with better instincts, maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I could be totally wrong about that, but that's kind of my impression.
I think that's how they see it. I think that's how Vic sees it. But when I have a player with that kind of upside, like I don't want to derail or as I said to Zander, I'm going to wait at least until he has a bad game. Because everybody has bad games. Yeah. And he's a rookie. He's going to have a bad game. But he hadn't had a bad game.
He hasn't had a bad game, but when they put Nakobe in, I think they got a lot better against the run, and they were really having a problem there.
All right.
In those games they lost, that was keeping their offense off the field for quite a while. But I don't feel that strongly about it. I would love to see more of Jihad, and I hate that the snaps aren't there. I don't think you can play him at safety. Or CB2, that would be the other spot. But it is a problem. And it illustrates, I was reading an interesting piece yesterday contending that Vic doesn't have that much say in personnel, that Howie goes out and gets these guys like Adoree Jackson and Vic.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Yeah, well, somewhat. But then you look at their drafts and the linebackers, and you can't tell me that.
Well, I do think, and Howie deserves credit, and he's explained this to us, earlier in his career, maybe he didn't listen to the coaches as much as he should have, but it's a balancing line. But he said pretty consistently, if you're a good GM, you're getting players that your coaches want.
Yeah.
So I think he's learned over the years and I think he's very in tune with what Vic wants. But I think when Vic says, minimal. That's the term he used. What's your impact on personnel? He was asked about that in advance of the trade deadline. I do think that's correct.
I just wonder if he knows that he's supposed to say that too. I mean, there are things.
Oh, sure. He's a savvy guy. He's a savvy guy. But I think the relationship, these guys are together, as you know, all year. And, the relationship is real. And Vic imparts what he wants, what he needs, and how he uses that information. But I think that Jalen Reagor pick was the crux for Howie Roseman, where he said, Les, if I'm going to get the shit for these picks, I'm going to pick the guys that I want.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with that, but it is interesting to see that sometimes it seems like they're getting guys like Jaelan Phillips, who is somebody that Vic, probably.
No doubt to me, it's sort of more layered. It's like, there's no doubt that Howie knew Vic would like Jaelan Phillips, but I think there's sort of a sentiment where, like, Vic walks in the door and says, "Get me this player." I don't think that exists.
Right? No. You couldn't. No. Yeah. I agree with you there.
Yeah. All right. I also want to talk injuries with you, because this is, and you were at the forefront of when the Eagles shifted Super Bowl 52. They shifted their sort of medical training staff, a bunch of it. Boy, they're having an historic run of health compared to, and I'm talking about serious injuries. You just mentioned Tucker Kraft, and I'm talking season-ending.
Yeah.
Boy, I know the Eagles hate the term luck, but it's luck, right? I mean, at some point, it doesn't matter how good your medical staff is, your training staff is. An ACL tear is an ACL tear.
Well, if somebody's arm gets bent backwards like Jaden Daniels does the other night, it's that could happen to anybody.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not training or nutrition or any of that stuff. But I think they do things that minimize. They don't have the MetLife turf as their home field.
Yeah. Well,
they don't. Although we grumble about the lack of preseason work that the starters get and how long it takes things to come together, that definitely affects, that keeps you from getting people hurt. They do everything they can possibly do, and I think there is an effect from that. It isn't, it doesn't give you total inoculation from being devastated by injuries, but you do have to wonder about some teams who year after year seem to have.
San Francisco.
Yeah, at what point is it so much luck that it's not a coincidence? It's a lot of luck.
Yeah.
I mentioned San Francisco. I mean, they bring a guy in, their first-round draft pick, and the first thing he does is go down for the season. It's a very interesting puzzle in the NFL as to what is practice and what is just random.
Yeah. Well, I think I think where you can really make an impact is rehab, after an injury, coming back from an injury.
Yeah.
We all know the Chris Marigo story here, which,
right.
And I think they've gotten much better at that kind of stuff. But to your point, and I remember when Dallas Goedert broke his forearm, it's like, you stick your arm out there to, stiff arm somebody. Sometimes you get your forearm broke.
But your rehab point is very, very important. I think you mentioned Jihad Campbell a little while ago. I don't think any of us expected him to be ready and raring to go when training camp started.
Well, Vic said expected him in August, and he made that joke about the training staff that he's learned they like to. What did he say? They like to.
Under promise and over perform.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Which was a great one-liner. I think that, but they've done a great job with that. I think that's
also with Nakobe Dean. I was one of those when the season started. I was like, the injuries he had. Good grief! If he might not be himself, at all this season. He might be working through and getting it all back, and it might be 2026 before we really see Nakobe Dean. No, he's himself. They did a wonderful job on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last on the
Kobe.
football field, what do you think they got to do here in the second half of the year to try and, realize that Super Bowl potential that they have? They've had an up and down. I mean, I know they're 6-2, but they've had some good moments and some bad moments. What do you think they really got to get going here in the second half of the year?
Well, they're coming off a real good game against the Giants, I thought. Consistency on the offense will take a lot of pressure off the defense. The defense isn't as good, and it probably isn't going to be as good as the one that dominated the Super Bowl next year just because of the people they lost. But it's good. I mean, it's good enough to win with a really good offense that takes the pressure off the defense, gets it a lead.
Right.
Keeps the snaps down. Isn't, like some of those games where they were given 74 or 72 defensive snaps, you don't want to do that. Consistent offense, offensive line, that's the key to me. The offensive line has started playing better. Get the key guys healthy there. I think maybe this layoff will help to quite a bit. Key guys healthy there, get everybody working, get the running game. They came in with that extra offensive line.
Yeah, I love that. I love that big Fred package.
Yeah. Well, Fred's a good guy to have on the field, and it's like you were saying about Campbell, find a way to use this thing. You've got a guy that is a solid player here. So stay with that and maybe get the passing game. It's going now, but I'd still like to see that they've started using more under center. They started using more play action. Keep those things going.
At Les Bowen, make sure you follow Les on the X platform. You can read him over at PHLY at PHLY_sports. Still doing a great job with this team. All right, we got to 4:00. Is Howie going to do something else, Les?
I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think he's going to take a big swing at this point, but hey, here's one for you. What would you give for Zach Ertz right now?
That's
Zach Ertz. I like Zach Ertz. Yeah, Zach coming back. That'd be great. I don't think Zach helps though. He's a receiver.
He's not a great blocker. He's better than he was early in his career.
Yeah. But it would be a great
Goddard gets hurt a lot.
Career. Yeah.
Goddard gets hurt a lot, and he hasn't gotten hurt this year. But I would think about what they'd want, for that. Something to ponder.
Would be fun for Zach to end his career here if that's possible.
Yeah, it really would.
Yeah, he wasn't very happy when Howie traded him out, if I remember correctly.
Well, he was kind of, he
understood it, but he was emotional about it.
He wanted to be, and they were moving towards Dallas, and they should have. And those are the difficult things in the NFL. You have to make these tough decisions. But it would be fun. Great all-time Eagles player, obviously, can still catch the football with the best of them. That's an interesting one. People want Splash, though. Are we going to get a Splash? Micah Fitzpatrick. We got that name.
I'd be shocked. I'd be all for it. I'd be shocked if that happened at this point. But who knows?
Yeah, so would I. Who knows with Howie? Howie doesn't like to stand still.
He does not. But again, it's so hard to make a big impact move.
Yeah.
At the trade deadline, you don't acquire superstars at the trade deadline normally.
No, you usually get Robert Quinn. You usually get Robert Quinn or Golden Tate or.
It's really his management of assets where I think that puts him ahead of everyone. I mean, Les, you talked about the rich price that we paid for Jaylen, and realistically, it is. It's a third-round pick for 9 games, but he still has potentially 2 more third-round picks. You know what I mean? Like, he still has 6 picks in the top 4 rounds of this upcoming draft, and he traded what he traded. So that's, I think,
I agree. I don't think it's a terrible thing. I just said, that's more than.
Well, you're objectively speaking, you're definitely right. I mean, that's a big price to pay for a rental player, but we'll see what ends up happening.